URA's BID to make precincts greater under pressure, even as businesses take the lead to increase the appeal of their district. Only 4 of the pilot's 9 precincts have decided to continue on. And for more analysis on this, I'm now joined by Dr. Tan Wenn Er, postdoctoral fellow at the National University of Singapore's Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. She did her postdoctoral research in Business Improvement Districts, or BIDs. Dr. Tan, welcome to the program. So this BID program is all about empowering local stakeholders. We're looking at businesses and community groups to work together to improve their precincts. Why do some BIDs thrive while others fall through?
Sure. So thank you so much for having me on tonight. I think to answer that question, we really need to define what a BID is. And so a BID is really a place management policy where stakeholders, namely the business owners or the property owners, come together and collectively decide to govern their precinct. And so what sets a BID apart from other placemaking initiatives is really that distinction in terms of funding. So they're usually funded for a 4 to 5 year term, and that means that they have this longer runway to really see through the initiatives that they want to do. And so in terms of why some BIDs fail and some thrive, that could really be a lot of different factors. And I think one thing to keep in mind is whether the different stakeholders can really come together and have this shared, cohesive place identity. That said, I think BIDs are really a tool for precincts to use, and so it's very normal for some places to realize that this is not quite the policy for them.
So what exactly defines a successful BID model?
So I guess by definition, a successful policy BID model would be one that is renewed for a second term, in that the different stakeholders have come together, they've decided that during their first term, they've effectively been able to implement their business plan, and they want to further commit their funding. So they're really putting their money where their mouth is and see through the initiatives.
So it's really about the funding. But if BIDs don't work in the case of Paya Lebar, for example, what are the next best alternatives for that precinct? How can they still develop their placemaking capability further?
Sure. So I think the placemaking landscape is actually really diverse in Singapore. So an example that would come to mind would be business associations. And this is not something that's new. We've had business association for years. An example would be Leisure, the Little India Shop Owners and Heritage Association. They've been running from the 2000. But I think something to remember is that you don't have to be a formal BID in order to do placemaking. The kind of general ethos is to start small, to really listen to the needs of your community, and really just go out and start doing the things that would help bring a community together.
Okay, and we were talking about how funding is very crucial for this BID program. And as we understand, it's operated independently by the private sector, but it receives funding from the government. Do you see this as something sustainable? And in what ways can BIDs become more self-reliant?
Sure. So I think in terms of sustainability, that's really the big thing. That's why BIDs came about in the first place, because I think people elsewhere overseas have realized that, hey, if we want to plan these longer term initiatives, we really need to know that we have that runway to do that. So actually overseas, a lot of BIDs impose a BID levy on their stakeholders. And so that means that when they form a BID, they agree to fund the initiatives for that 4 to 5 years.
And as part of your research, Dr. Tan, you looked at the emergence of pilot BIDs in Singapore. Yes. It piloted in September 2017, but apparently we are not the first in the world to come up with this.
That's right.
Can you share with us some of the overseas case studies that Singapore can learn from?
I think in terms of case studies, Yeah, you're right. We're definitely not the first, and the BID landscape has really evolved. For example, in the UK now, there are over 300 different kinds of BIDs. Some of them focusing on industrial areas, some of them focusing on tourism. So usually where BIDs can thrive is when they are able to focus on a very specific vision for the precinct, or when they have a problem that they see that they can solve.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is criticism, though, of BIDs as driving gentrification or inequalities. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the criticisms are generally targeted at BIDs overseas because, and it happens within a wider landscape of austerity and regeneration efforts. So in that sense, I think Singapore is kind of buffeted from that.
Okay.
In that our funding model is very different. The kind of objectives behind BIDs might look very different as well.
So in the context of Singapore, what do you think are some of the challenges that you foresee taking place in future BID programs?
I think a challenge would really be for the BID itself to decide that this is something they need, whether they're able to come together to form this cohesive vision and really put their resources towards that.
Okay, so if we look at the 9 precincts that have indicated interest to participate in the BID program, most of them somehow are in the city area. Where else do you think are good areas that have the potential to do BIDs? Perhaps somewhere in the heartlands, maybe?
I think heartland BIDs would definitely be something really interesting to consider. But I think we need to kind of go back to the origins of BIDs and remember that they're meant to be a tool. So it's really up to the stakeholders to decide that this is something they want to invest in, this is a problem they see that needs to be fixed. So in that sense, it really has to be kind of a BID by BID basis. That said, I think when a BID is successful is when they're really committed to that vision. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Tan, thank you very much for coming in to share your insights on this. That was Dr. Tan Wenn Er from the National University of Singapore.